Hey guys, Lee Labrada here, and today I am honored and privileged to be with my good friend Terrence Ruffin, who is a extraordinary classic bodybuilding athlete. You guys already know that he was first runner-up at the Mr. Olympia, first runner-up at the Arnold Classic, and you are just banging on the door. I can relate. I can relate to that.
I'm getting close. Yeah. I'm going. The Arnold Classic is coming up soon, so hopefully we can move up just that one spot this year. Yeah.
That's right. Well, that one spot is a big spot. That's a big jump, and
Yeah.
you're getting ready.
Yes. I mean, it's been a long road. I mean, I turned pro in 2014 at 21 years old in bodybuilding.
That's amazing.
And you know, I didn't do my first pro show until 2016, and you know, won the Tampa Pro, went to the Olympia in Classic Physique, and you know, I got ninth my first year. So I've been slowly trying to slowly building until now I'm here.
That's amazing, and you've done a great job, and people know you not just for your great physique, but they know you also for your posing. And that's one of the things that you and we talked before, and we decided that we wanted to teach you guys some of the things that we know about posing, old school, new school, and classical bodybuilding posing and presentation.
It's gonna be fun.
Yes, it sure will. So let me ask you something. I mean, what do you think creates good posing? What do you think are the keys to good posing?
I think one, they need to understand their body, their strengths and weaknesses, and I notice a lot of bodybuilders aren't able to quite see that. You know, they hire a coach and they can move them around, or hire a posing coach, they move them, but I think a great poser should be able to see those things themselves. I think that when learning posing, definitely learn your mandatories first, because that's your base, and then you can add variations in there, and then from there you build upon that adding transitions and things of that nature. That's kind of the way I like to think of it there too.
100%. So I agree with you that you need to know your body first. You need to know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, so that you can hide the weaknesses and you can emphasize the strengths. And that is particularly important in freestyle posing. You know, because obviously you have your compulsory or your mandatory poses that you have to do for the judges, but during the freestyle round, I think what's lost on a lot of the athletes is that they have the opportunity there to show off their strengths, and another piece of it, Terrence, that that really comes to mind for me is these transitions. For me, transitions are dynamic poses. They're moving poses.
Yeah.
So you're posing whether you're doing a static pose, like a front lat spread or something, or you're shifting into another one. You're posing the whole time, right?
I totally agree. I tell people when they get on stage, imagine like a person taking pictures nonstop, not just when you hit that mandatory or something like that. If they shouldn't be able to get a bad shot of you.
That's right. That's a great rule right there. Is make your posing so good that no matter when the photographer takes that picture, they can't get a bad shot of you on stage. So whether they get you in the pose, or whether they get you transitioning into another pose,
those are some of the best pictures in bodybuilding.
That's right.
Even more like closest to the day, I can think of like the one where Jay Cutler's stomping his foot, or Ronnie Coleman reaching back for that
for that lat spread.
Yeah. Those are some of the coolest poses, the ones where people are transitioning, for sure.
You know what that brought to mind was, back in the day when they created the movie Pumping Iron, Ed Corney was the world's premier poser at that time. And I remember seeing the book, Pumping Iron, and it had a sequence of photos in there of Ed Corney, during the posing routine. It had all his transitions.
That's cool.
And such, and you could just see like just how dynamic the transitions were. It was just amazing.
Ed Corney was definitely ahead of his time with the posing, for sure.
He really was. So was he an influence on you, and were there other influences on you? I know I had my influences as well.
Ed Corney, I did like him. He wasn't one of my main guys that that influenced me. I think you were honestly the biggest.
Thank you.
I loved Bob Paris.
Great guy, great poser.
Definitely, yeah. I think he was more. I talked to one of my friends, Rachel, and she says a lot of the best posers they aren't just bodybuilders, they're artists. And
Yes.
and that's how they convey the art through bodybuilding.
That's right.
And I would totally agree, and I see a lot of that with the best posers. Even they're multi-talented. Like say for instance Kai, he's known as a good poser. He's also a painter,
Right.
An actor and things of
Right.
that nature. And
Right.
I see that a lot.
And I see a lot of like where when Kai Green poses, I see a lot of that dynamic expression of motion. It's not just static poses. There's just a lot of fluidity and art, and dance
Yeah.
involved with it, and so it's it really is an art. It's balancing, the dynamic poses, the transitions, the fluid movement along with the static poses, which we all do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So. For me, some of my influences were Ed Corney, which I mentioned. Muhammad Makdawi
Yes.
was another one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who could forget his poser routine, from the Mr. Olympia contest, in the early '80s. It was amazing.
His twisting shots where he would show off his forearms and his back were like
Yes.
some of my favorite poses. Yeah.
Yes, and he was very dramatic with the hand gestures and whatnot. And that's one of the things. It's interesting. I know I'm going off a little bit on a tangent here, but the hands are so important for posing, right?
It is.
And what I teach the people that follow me for posing is that the hands are expressive. When you move between poses, your hands are open and graceful.
Yeah.
But then when you come in and then you
It's like
clench, you show power.
Yeah.
So it's grace and power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say the same thing.
Yeah, grace and power.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So getting some fluidity and that type of thing. Do you think that the judges put enough emphasis on the freestyle posing presentation?
I don't think they put enough emphasis on it. I think what they use that for is maybe helping them choose the first call out, to a certain degree, but not. I don't think it plays a huge importance anymore in today's bodybuilding.
Do you think it places it plays a more important part, say, in classic bodybuilding?
Unfortunately, no, I don't think so. I mean, it's really sad because at the Arnold, we weren't even given the opportunity to win like a best poser award. It was only for bodybuilding. And Sergio was a great poser that year, don't get me wrong. But it would have been cool to have classic guys also up for that type of award, or even as a separate one,
Right.
Yeah. So hopefully in the future they add a little bit more importance to it. But I honestly will say, though, I think they appreciate it, but like scoring-wise and placing-wise, I don't think it really plays much of a role.
Right. You know what I always tell, my students, and I tell this to my son Hunter, who, as you already know, is an IFBB pro also. I tell him that human nature being what it is, that when you present something beautiful, when you present that body in motion, as a judge, you can't help but look at and admire the fluidity of the body, and I think that it makes an indelible impression, not just in the mind of the judge, in the eye of the judge, but in the eyes of the audience as well. Even if it's just at a subconscious level, and then everything else being equal. Okay, because it won't overcome if you're not in condition, right?
Yeah.
But everything else being equal, it could give you the edge.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Okay,
yeah.
because it's like they saw something when you when you were transitioning. It's almost like a statue of motion, and it creates an impression. Just in the back of your mind, you're looking at that athlete more.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
I'll tell you that from my own experience with the. Competing in the Mr. Olympia competitions back in the late '80s and early '90s, I wasn't the biggest guy on stage, as you already know, not even close, not even close.
Yeah.
But when I set out to do my poser routines, I always try to select music that was memorable and timeless. I didn't pose to things that were popular back in the day. Okay, because like if you guys were looking at my posing routines from back in the '80s and you saw me posing to Madonna music, and nothing wrong with Madonna music to listen to or
She's
dance
a nice
to,
lady.
but not for classical bodybuilding, But what I think happens is that if you pick timeless music, classical music, beautiful music, and you put a choreographed routine to it, it creates something that's kind of timeless.
I agree with that. Yeah.
You know, and so when people see what I did back in the day, maybe I wasn't the most impactful bodybuilder in terms of my physique, but I'm a memorable bodybuilder because of the presentation and the way I presented my physique.
I totally agree. Even before I kind of reached where I am now with my placings, I was being mentioned, you know, in the names of the top guys because of my posing. I placed 9th at the Olympia, which isn't bad, but every single year I was talked about like in the top 5. I was already getting events more so than the other guys in the top 5. I was in guest posings and seminars solely because of my posing.
Because of the posing.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. And you do have quite the following for your posing, and
yeah.
And I tell people that Terrence is carrying the torch forward. There's hope for bodybuilding.
Oh man.
No, listen, it's all good. In seriousness, what I've noticed of late, you know, and it just lately, is that the guys seem to be making an effort again.
I agree.
Would you agree with that?
I totally agree, and it's a pleasant thing to see.
Yes,
it really is.
Yes.
Whether it's the amateurs, or even I've noticed some bodybuilders putting a lot more effort into it. I've had a couple clients here and there.
Some of the open guys.
Yeah, some of the open guys.
Yeah, are actually starting to move pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, and what I like to tell people is, listen, you've put so many hours into developing your physique.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've done all the gut busting work, you've done the prep, you've starved yourself. I mean, you've done all the sacrifices. So why would you not put as much effort into your posing and creating something that's very memorable? You know.
I totally agree, and like I think with bodybuilding and posing, I think that's how we reach more people. That's how we make it more entertaining.
That's right.
I talked to a couple guys that are outside the industry, but very well known in theirs, like in wrestling and acting. I know a couple actors, and they say, hey, if you guys put more effort into that posing part, then I think you guys could grow the sport of bodybuilding like exponentially, and I totally agree with that.
What does it take to be a great poser, Terrence?
Oh man, that's a lot. Like I said before, I mean, definitely understanding your own body, understanding
your strengths and your weaknesses, right?
Understanding like shapes and lines. You know, some people, they may know they have a weakness somewhere, but they hit like a pose and like their arms up here, like their arms not like in line properly.
Right.
You know, so understanding like stuff like that is important. What looks good. I think posing routine-wise, like you said, choosing the proper music can, even if you did the same routine, choosing the proper music is going to elevate that routine quite a bit.
That's right.
You know.
How do you go about choosing your music?
Well, one, it has to have an impact on me first.
You have to feel it.
I have to feel it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to feel it. That's the first step. Other things I think about are changes in like the tempo of the song, so it's not all slow, because people start to get a little bit bored.
Right. You can't put them to sleep. It has to have ebbs and flows, right?
Mm-hmm. 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 So slow parts and then some
dynamics.
Yeah, totally agree. I like to think of what I do kind of like how I'm a fan of Bruce Lee and Ip Man. So you know, Bruce Lee learned from him, and he took everything he learned from him, but then kind of created his own thing. And so I like to take a lot of the styles of music used back in the day, the classical stuff, but the music I use has a slight twist. So it's still a lot of it's instrumentals, a lot of it's classic, but a little bit of new school involved too. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. You know what's funny? You mentioned the martial arts and Bruce Lee and Ip Man, and my first sport was Taekwondo.
Oh, cool.
When I was 8 years old, I started with Taekwondo, and I did that for a few years. And I remember learning the katas. You know, the different katas, right?
I think you did that in one where you went here and then you jumped to the...
That's right. And then came in with...
Yeah,
do you remember that?
I've seen you do this a couple times, like here.
That type, and then this type of thing. And so it's really interesting, but martial arts helps you to develop body coordination. You know, that you can use in posing as well. It's funny that you mentioned that, right?
It is. I've told people this before too. Like, you can find inspiration for posing anywhere. Like you said, like in martial arts, and some people find it in like different comic book stuff or different things like that. You can find different movements that'll look good in actual posing.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, it's really
that's
cool,
right.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's one of the things that you're really very good at, is breaking away from like the traditional static, lat spread, front double bicep, and adding your own twist to things.
Yeah.
Incorporating, poses that, might seem a little unorthodox.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely try to do unique things and try to create different transitions and try to keep it interesting for sure. Another thing I think too with good routines is sometimes people will, I guess the only word I can think of is stay in the same plane too long. Like they'll hit all the just front shots, then they'll do all the just side shots, and then back. I like to do a couple front, then maybe I'll drop down and do something like kneeling from this way.
Yep.
Then I'll hop up and do something on this side to keep it interesting.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I try not to repeat the same poses more than.
You know what?
Yeah.
That's one of my my basic rules as well. Is try not to repeat the same pose. And a lot of times when I'm putting together, let's talk about putting together a pose.
Okay.
It's funny because what I'll do is I'll select the music, right? We'll select the music, which is a personal choice. We've been talking a lot about classical music and movie soundtracks and themes and things without words, but it's obviously it's personal.
Yeah.
So for some people that's rock, for other people it's rap. For other people it's jazz. I mean, it just runs the whole gamut. So you have to pick something that's personal to you and that you feel. But once you select the music, what I like to do is I like to go through and I like to break up the music into different sections.
Okay.
Like where this section here is a little slower, that section is a little faster, and then I just make myself a laundry list of all the different poses.
I've done that before.
Okay, and then literally I'll just try to plug and play them into different parts. And I'll go, how does this look here? How does that look there? And just kind of try to daisy chain them that way.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so it just kind of allows you to kind of just mix and match. It's like playing with a Lego set.
Okay.
Plug it into different posing Lego pieces.
I do that too, yeah. I mean, with this last routine I did, I looked at some your 1991 routine and I found 2 poses I wanted to add into the routine I did this past weekend at your show. And I was just trying to figure out. By the way,
you did a great job. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out where I could put them. I got to say that one where at the very end of the 91 where you had one leg in front, you here, and then you spent, and then you went up, and you were at like an angle, and then you came down and you were like this.
Right.
And that was very difficult to do.
That was probably my most difficult routine.
Because when you have to have faith, like it wasn't you just like standing up and then just like spreading your legs. You were like falling into that pose. You have to have a lot of faith that you're gonna move that leg out and catch yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Bullfighter routine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the Bullfighter routine, and that move when I came up like that and then came down, that was like the driving the sword into the bull.
Now that you say that, I see
sorry,
a lot
animal
of
rights activists. It's 35 years ago, and it was a dance.
I think I see a lot more of it now, especially when you were like. Some of the movements you were doing, it's like how
the Bullfighter.
Yeah.
That's where that came from, the Bullfighter.
I totally get it. I totally see it now, yeah.
Watch it again, and this time, and just remember the Bullfighter.
That's cool. That's really cool.
I worked with a Spanish choreographer on that one, a guy that was belonged to a ballet dance troupe in Madrid in the late 80s, and and he gave me the inspiration for those moves. I put the routine together myself, but the idea, the concept of the Bullfighter to that piece of music, came about from working with him. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah. So it was good. So you can draw inspiration from watching ballet sometimes, those kind of things. Yeah, it's very, very interesting stuff. So what do you think that what direction do you think that classic physique is heading in, in the next few years?
I think that they were changing the weight limits quite a bit for a while. I think we're at a pretty good spot right now. I don't think they need to raise it anymore. I'm pretty close to what some of the guys would weigh from a height in like the 80s.
And may I ask how tall you are?
I'm 5'5".
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're about the same height. Yeah, and I used to compete at $180, $185. Yep.
This last Olympia I was 177, so
I'll be
getting there. Yeah. So. Yeah, so I think we're at a good spot with all of that right now. I think the direction it's going. I like to see, each and every year they're increasing the prize money and things like that. We're getting more respect.
Right. And you should.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the first year we were just on the expo stage, and it was done in like, we were done in like 4 hours. They had our prejudging. We took an hour off and we finished. And then this year we were on the big stage, which was, you know, really, really nice. I think that if bodybuilding or the IFBB is to grow a little bit, not on a full mainstream, but more, it's going to be through Classic Physique.
And we see Classic Physique just literally exploding, you know, even at the local level. The number of entrants that are coming, that are pouring in, it's really, really driving the growth.
You know, I look back at what I look back at your time and how you were on like all these different networks, Fox, CNN, ESPN. In the 80s is probably my favorite era, and it's pretty interesting to see how things started to kind of climax in that time frame with the look and with the opportunities you guys had. And at some point it started to fade away. We lost all those national TV spots. Things started to change, and I think with Classic Physique we can kind of bring that back.
I think that that's very possible as well, you know, and it's refreshing to see the presentations that you guys are bringing to the you know, to the stage. I cannot thank you enough for our conversation today. I mean, it's really, really great catching up with you. Are there any other words of wisdom that you want to share with our viewers?
Oh man. Well, you know, people always ask me like, how long should I pose for? You know, I don't have an answer for them, but I will tell you, like, the best of the best, every free opportunity they have, they're working on their craft, you know?
Yes, yes, and I would echo that sentiment, you know, and people will ask, well, you know, how does somebody move as smooth as Terrence? How does he do that, you know? And it's rote practice, guys. I mean, the more you do it, the more second nature it becomes, the more balance you have, and you know, and the easier it becomes when you actually get up on stage and compete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
Shall we take a look at some actual clips of posing and string together some poses and talk about those?
Yeah, that sounds fun.
All right, let's do that. Okay. Cool. Terrence, let me ask you this: like, when you go to put together your poser routine, what are some of the things that are going through your mind, and what are some of the tips that we can share with our viewers today?
Some of the things that go through my mind are, once I have the song and once I have a couple poses I wanna add to it, is how can I make this creative? How can I make people say, wow, I haven't seen something like that before? How can I keep this interesting? Basically, how can I make this as enjoyable to watch as possible? And definitely transitions are a huge part of that.
That's a big one. That's a big one, the transitions. You know, and I mean, it's a lot of times, you know, you see guys that'll come up and they'll do like a front double bicep, right? And then they drop their arms.
Yeah, lazy.
And they get, lazy, and then they get into their front lat spread. So, you know, why not just move this way, you know, and make it a little bit more elegant, you know, the transition, right? You know, that type of thing.
I totally agree. I think another huge thing, and I saw this recently at a show, is the guy, he hit the poses okay, he transitioned okay, but it felt like it was like a lack of conviction or like oomph to his poses. So he would kind of get into them lazy. He would just kind of move like this. He didn't look into it.
So it's almost not finishing it. Almost not finishing it is what I'm hearing. Yeah. So like not just kind of like okay, and then just not quite locking them in and that type of a thing.
I think so.
Yeah. You know, so I think that it's important to you know, to show the you know, grace when you're moving, you know, and then, you know, followed by power, you know, when you lock in a pose, you know, and as Terrence said, showing conviction, you know, that you mean it. Yeah,
that you mean. Yeah, when you hit the pose, this is it. Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree, and I definitely agree. Every time I tell people, it's like you're opening, and as you get to your closing, it's like that. It's
opening
like,
and closing.
Yeah, usually when you start moving, you open the hands, and when you get to the spot, close. That's kind of the best way I can think about it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we mentioned it in the earlier segment. You know, basically grace followed by power. Okay.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so those are a couple of the things that, to keep in mind. I would like to ask you, if you will, just to grab a string of poses from the posing routine that you just did,
Okay.
and let's just kind of step through it, and let's teach the audience about some of your transitions.
Alrighty. Okay. So one of the cool ones I enjoyed doing this past weekend was, I went from. Give me a second. Boom. So I did one here, like a face one, and I brought it out here, and then I like to do a lot of transitions where I'm up high and then I go down low. So I went from here, and I dropped here, and then I switched into a 3/4 bicep. And this is a one I really enjoyed. I bring this leg back, and then I come here.
That's very elegant.
Yeah. So I really enjoy that one. That's probably the coolest one I've done. And one more that I really enjoy that I think I got from you is where I do it better on the other way. But
Everybody's got a favorite side.
yeah, I have a favorite side. So yeah, we're here, and then I'll drop this knee down.
Right.
And I bring this other leg up so we can go do back poses now.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I saw that. That was pretty slick the way that you changed that. Yeah, you
Yeah.
changed it. Let's break that down. That last piece. Let's do that
Okay.
one just a little bit slower. You know. So
Okay.
how would you step them through that? What would they do?
So we'll start with a kneeling pose here. And then basically, this is another big thing when it comes to posing is mobility and flexibility. I think I
Right.
still need a little bit more ankle to make it a bit smoother, but I lean forward,
Okay.
and then I drop that knee down.
And then you actually drop that knee down.
Yeah, so if I had a
Wow.
bit more,
That's a stretch, man.
if I had a bit more flexibility in my ankle, it would be look a little bit smoother from there to there.
Gotcha.
But that's about all I have right now.
Wow. That's a drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I bring that other leg up
at the
and I'll
same
do-
time that
yeah,
you move,
yeah.
at the same time that you're moving your arms up.
I do something. I always make sure I do something with my hands, or yeah. I mean, you would probably agree that anytime you're doing like a movement, you just don't want your arms, hanging down doing
Right.
nothing.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, you have to be cognizant of where your arms are at all times, right? And you
Yes.
have to be doing something with them.
I totally agree. And then from there, I can do like a back pose here.
Right.
Yeah. So or that.
See, and I like what you did there. You know how you went from this, and then you brought it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time that you're bringing your leg up, you're bringing your arm up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think definitely you want to make sure like your arms and legs kind of coincide and not one thing. Just there's times we can move one thing by itself, but if you're really trying to be graceful, it's really key to move the body like in unison.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I like what you just did, by the way. I'm sure you guys saw him. He was moving like this, and he just basically shifted his weight from this leg over to this leg.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like a shift, but at the same time, he moved the shoulders, and then his arms started going. See, to guys like you, it just
got an
comes
eye,
second nature. But you have to break it down, right?
That's
and I
true.
think that's where people, they get stuck. So think of it as the feet, and shifting the weight from one leg to the other, shifting the weight, same time rotating hips and shoulders, and then finally, using the hands.
Exactly. I think a lot of times with today, there's so many classes that people lose track of things. Like some things I see in men's physique can definitely be backtracked to bodybuilding back in the day. The way they go from they do like their poses here with the men's physique guys. I would just come here and then here. A lot of it's very, very similar. It's
Right.
just changed slightly to fit a certain class. And I tell people like they'll switch from men's physique to bodybuilding. And I'm like, keep that fluidity that you had in men's physique.
Yes.
Just incorporate it in the bodybuilding.
Right. Right.
They'll tell me the things I hate to hear the most is the guy say, "Oh, I pose like a bodybuilder." I'm like, what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Pose
what
like a bodybuilder.
They act like it's a bad thing. I'm like, no. I'm like every single thing that I do and every great pose, it comes from bodybuilding.
That's right.
That's
right. You know what's interesting about what you just said? I mean, back in the old days, if you look at some of the photographs, the black and white photographs from bodybuilders from all the way back in the 50s, you know, and you would see these poses like this, you know, or poses like this, you know. I mean, they're just so different looking, you know, and artistic, and you know, or you would see you know, these poses like this by Steve Reeves.
Steve, yeah.
You know, I think it was 1947, Mr. America. And you know, a lot of these are lost.
They are,
because you know, people get locked into you know what I would call, you know, poses that like originated more in the 70s. You know, so it's more this type of a pose.
Instead of higher.
Okay, instead of this type of a thing.
That's interesting.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know a lot of guys, well, I at least know, like, I was researching, like, Eugene Sandow, and a lot of things he did, he would actually go look at different art pieces, and that's how he would learn certain poses.
That's right.
You know, and I think that's where it started to change, where bodybuilders drew a lot of inspiration from artists back in the day, and now it's a little different. Now,
Eugene Sandow, who he just mentioned, for those of you that don't know, that is the guy that is the model for the Mr. Olympia trophy.
The Sandow,
the Sandow. And so, you know, he was a bodybuilder from the turn of the century all the way back in early 1900s.
Definitely, it was he's got a lot of cool history, guys. So you should check him out. Really great stuff.
You know what I would like to also do today is I'd like to grab a snippet from a pose routine that I did the Mr. Olympia all the way back in 1988.
Okay.
You know, which is the rotating archer.
Okay.
You know, which a lot of people have asked me about. Well, how do you do that rotating archer? You know,
it's pretty cool. It's really fluid.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the music on, and I'm going to run through it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to just kind of talk our way through it.
Okay.
Is that cool?
That's great. Yeah.
All right. So that's a little piece of it.
That was awesome. That was really cool.
We'll break it down now. So that's the for the archer or the archer on the turntable.
Okay.
As the case might be, and so the weight is on the right foot. Okay, so I could literally pick this foot up, right? So all the weight is on the right foot, and we start in a front double bicep. We bring that guy down into the archer, and then we start spinning. So first what I'm doing is I'm spinning from the hips and the shoulder. And then when I get to the point where I just can't do it anymore, then I'm moving this foot, this right foot, I'm moving it and dragging the other foot around. And so that's right. It's almost like crawling around. You see how his foot is crawling around, and that's how you shift. One tip is to just keep a straight line with your eye looking down your hand, and so your eye should follow your hand all the way around. And this would be just a little higher, and it would just follow like you're shooting.
Okay.
Yep. And bring that leg around to this point right here. Okay, and then from this point right here, this was kind of an interesting thing, and that's exactly right.
Yeah,
you saw that's exactly
really cool.
right. So from here, what I did was I dropped this arm right here, actually, and then brought them this way at the same time. This is hard. Okay. Like this. Oh my God. That's it. That's exactly right. And then from here, okay, it was one of these where I dropped this arm and came along with this one. So drop this arm, come along with this one.
Okay.
And then from here, I was listening to the music, I was choreographing it. So I was just boom, boom.
Boom. Okay.
Right, it's just like boom, boom. Right, and then boom. That's right, and then the same thing again, boom, boom. And then boom. And then bring this leg out, finish the archer to the back, and then spin that guy around. That's it.
Yeah. That was tough.
It's the tough part, obviously, is keeping your balance on this foot because you got all the weight on this foot. This foot is really just kind of gliding around in the circle, right?
Okay.
You know, and then you get to a point and you just have to bring them around. Yeah. So that was the one I get a lot of questions about, guys. So I wanted to just break that down for you.
Yeah, that was really cool. One of my other favorites ones, I'm still, this is probably my weakest poses, or like my 3/4 poses, but you did one where you went from like here and then you brought it back in and then you brought it back out again. Oh, but there's one, we'll start with that one. I got one more after that.
Sure.
But probably my favorite one I've seen you do is where you were doing like a 3/4 pose here, then you stepped forward, you brought your arms up, and then you were about like here, and then you spent, came up.
Oh, and then down.
Yeah, then down.
Yes.
That was very.
You have to wear a crash helmet for that one.
Yeah.
That was from the Bullfighter Routine.
The Bullfighter Routine.
Yeah. And I'd be lying to you if I had told you that I remember exactly how to do it.
It was difficult.
But yeah, definitely. You know, one of those twist type of things where you end up. Yeah, I'd have to study that one. Yeah,
I had to practice it a few times. I was actually surprised on how difficult it was. I mean, he saw me the other day practicing a lot. It was the last thing I learned. Yeah. That was probably my favorite thing that you've done. But well, I just had to tell you.
Thank you. Yeah, that one's probably the one of the most difficult routines I've ever done. Yeah,
it was really long too,
as I call it, right? And it was done to a Spanish piece of classical music.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've watched that a lot, and I'm like, yeah, it definitely had. It looked very difficult. How long it was, how many different transitions you had, and it wasn't just easy transitions. They were very complex. A lot of them.
Yeah. You know, and that's something that that you know a lot about, and that you use in your routines as well. You know, which is you bring art into your routines. You know, so it's not just about finding a novel way of getting from a front double bicep to one other basic pose. It's about creating some fluidity and art and sculpture in between.
Agree.
Yeah.
How would you, so like say if a person is new and they want to eventually try to get to where they want to become a great poser, do you have like any like step-by-step things that you do? Like
it's just some of the things that come to mind, and especially if you're just starting out. Some of you are more advanced, and some of you are just getting started out. But we talked about this actually during the interview. But obviously you have poses that are from the front, poses that are from the right side, okay, poses that are from the back side, poses that are from the other side, and then back to the front. Okay, so one of the things that I like to do with the beginners is just to make sure that they start with quarter turns. And I don't mean just the mandatory quarter turns. I mean, going from here, and then just basically just gliding into quarter turns, and learning how to glide through quarter turns.
I like it, yeah.
You see? And so, and just learning to shift the body a quarter turn at a time, but not doing it in a blocky fashion, in a fashion where, where you're moving. You have to be conscious of your hands. It's like they're floating, right? Okay, so it's like the hands are floating.
I like it a lot. I like
Open hands.
Okay.
Almost like if there was water in front of you. Imagine if you're standing in water, waist deep water, and you're running your hands over the water.
Yeah. That's a really good, okay. So that's the first thing.
So I like to talk to them about about working in quarter turns. You know, I think that's a real important piece of it. You know, and then finding transitions where you can go from front to side, you know, to back, you know, in a fluid way.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the way. Yeah, that's a really good way to teach someone how to be more fluid from the start.
Yep. Just open hands, you know, and then I would say small turns at first. So like from the front, you know, like a front double bicep, you know, might go into a side chest shot. Okay.
Okay.
You know, and then a side chest shot might go into a 3/4 back shot.
Okay.
Which might then go into shots from the back.
Okay.
Okay, now from here, you can always spin around this way, right? You can always spin around this way.
Do a side pose.
And now you got your side tricep, right? Okay, or let's say that you wanted to, you know, to break the rule, you don't want to keep going in the same direction. If you wanted to go in the other direction, so one way of getting out of that is basically bringing that leg around this way.
Okay.
And then you can come to the front.
That's cool. It's cool. I definitely. So what I like the way you talk. The way I normally teach people how to pose is I always teach them to make sure they hit their mandatories right first. So make sure they have the basics down before. Because I've seen some people, they'll move and then they'll hit a shot like they're trying to hit a front double bicep or side chest and they're hitting it like this. I'm like, you gotta learn the basics before you go. You learn how to walk before you run.
That's right.
From there, I do like to do the same thing where I'll tell them, like, I make it almost like a game. I'm like, all right, show me how you would get from a front double to a side chest.
That's great.
Yeah. And
so almost like pick a couple, right? Okay, so I'm gonna pick a couple.
Okay.
Okay, let's start simple.
All right.
Okay, front double bicep to side chest.
Okay.
Love it.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Oh.
You call one.
Let's do side tricep to rear double bicep.
Okay, side tricep. So I would go from here.
Okay.
To a rear double bicep. I would probably just move this way.
Oh. I like it.
Yeah. Now that would be a pretty. That's a pretty straightforward move.
Let's do one more then.
Okay.
Let's do. A side tricep to an ab and thigh. I think that's a little bit prettier, yeah.
So yeah, from this would be a side tricep, you know, or you would do the side tricep this way.
Yeah.
Okay, and then to an ab and thigh, it's just like this.
I like it. I like how you came up one first, because that's a dynamic pose, just hitting it like that.
Right.
And
so
then
you get one shot out of it, right? But then you get the second shot out of it, which is full frontal.
Exactly.
Right? And then from there you could go into a front lat spread.
Love it. Yeah. I think the cool thing is too is like some people just don't know a lot of poses for some reason, and I'm like because like when I think of different like positions I'm in, like with that ab and thigh you went here, but you could have just brought that bicep up as well. There's a lot of different variations to different things.
Okay, and then check this one out. See, so that variation, like you said, from here, instead of doing a front abdominal, you could go into this shot right here, right? Which is a classic shot. Now watch this. You just turn that into an archer.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. That's why I think sometimes people should just spend time looking at poses, and because they just don't know for some reason, you know?
Yes.
So adding to your arsenal is in a sense, you know?
That's right. That's right. One of the things that I used to do when I was learning how to pose was I would go through the bodybuilding magazines. Yes, people, we actually had physical magazines back then.
In the day,
and we would literally cut the pictures out. So today what you would do is you would go online and then hit print and just print those pictures out and then cut them out. And I would
Okay.
just lay them out, and I would lay those pictures out, and I would just try to match those poses that the guys were doing as best as I could.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you spent, yeah, you definitely sounds like you spent a lot of concentrated effort on increasing your posing. So
It's like anything else. It takes time, right?
and I think you did it in a way, because some people, the way you did it was very interesting, because some people, they say, oh, I'm practicing posing, they would just do it in the mirror, but you actually spent time looking in magazines,
Yes.
studying other people.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of work. Yeah.
You have to study other people. So I would say study them two ways. One, actually print the photos out, clip them out, and then put them on the floor, or in front of you, and try to match the pose. And then secondly, study poser routines of bodybuilders. Don't try to do the whole routine, okay? And don't pick the most difficult routine. Don't start with this guy's routine. Or if you do, select like 3 or 4 poses, like a string of poses.
I agree, yeah.
Okay, and more of the basic ones. And then try to copy that, but just do it over and over and over again. Just those 3 or 4 poses until you get really good at them. And then one more thing, I would say videotape yourself. Actually videotape yourself once you feel that you got it. Videotape yourself and then play it back and see what it looks like.
That was a huge deal for me, because sometimes what I would see in the mirror wasn't what I saw like without looking in the mirror, And then also, I see sometimes people pick up bad tendencies when they're trying to look in the mirror. So like, if they're doing a back shot, they're like looking at themselves, they're not turned as much as they should be,
That's right.
So so you definitely need to spend time away from the mirror when you're trying to develop your posing.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it helps, to have a video camera or somebody maybe just recording you on an iPhone, and then just playing it back and that type of thing. And then I tell people, because you bring up a very interesting thing, when you finally get up on stage to compete, you're not going to have a mirror in front of you. You're going to have a lot of faces. You're going to have an audience, and you're going to have some judges in front of you. So you have to be able to do your routine without actually looking. And so to me, that's where the kinesiology comes in. In other words, you have to develop a sense of feel for the pose, what that pose feels like. So something you might try is, as you're practicing the poses, let's say, you practice it in the mirror, you're watching yourself in the mirror, but then relax, close your eyes, okay, hit the pose, and then open your eyes to see what it looks like in the mirror. You see, did I hit it right?
I like that,
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to train with Robbie Robinson about a month or 2 ago.
Great bodybuilder.
And he has some really cool posing tips. The way he would practice like one transition like 20, 30 times back to back to back.
Oh yeah.
To make sure he hit it properly on stage. And I don't know if people need to do that, but they definitely need to have that repetition in, so anytime they hit that pose, they're in that pose properly.
That's right.
100%.
That's right. Like what you just said, and if you're doing the pose wrong versus doing the pose right and opening up,
Exactly.
you want to make sure that you have a feel for it, and that you do it enough times that it's gonna look right when you do it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think another thing I wanted to talk about was there's some of the things that guys in shows you see like they do wrong or they mess up with their posing when they're competing. Personally, I think a big one is not being sure of themselves. So like when they walk up to do they walk up to the line here, like they're looking at their feet, they're trying to figure out what to do. Once they get it, then they step into it. I feel like you should be confident. You shouldn't have to look down at your legs. You should just step up, flex your legs, and come up.
That's right.
So I think fidgeting is a thing I notice a lot on stage.
Yeah, fidgeting. Be careful, guys, especially when you're first starting out. Be careful what you're doing with your hands. Okay, be careful what you're doing with your hands. Be real careful also, and this comes into. It's kind of one of those things where if you get too relaxed when you're up there, let's say that you have been called out and you've done your poses, you've been compared, and you're put back in the line. Well, I can relax now, right? Because the judges will tell you relax. Terrence, can they relax?
No.
No, you can't relax. If you're standing back there waiting for your call, you have to have your shoulders and your chest up. And you have to have your abs tight. You gotta stay tight, because the judges will still be looking across the lineup, and they'll be looking for people to pull forward to compare with the other guys.
Yeah, you're 100%. I know another thing I noticed is I think a lot of guys back in the day understood how bodybuilding and like body language correlated, like standing up tall, chin up, you know, things they teach you as a kid. But a lot of times in posing now, I'll see people like when they're doing their side relax, they're kind of like bent, squished up like this instead of standing up tall, chest up, things like that.
That's it. And you know how I summarize what you just said, which are excellent points. I summarize it as opening up.
Opening up is a better way to say it.
This is, I'm hiding myself.
Yeah.
This, I'm opened up.
And it's really, I mean, that looks like you're more confident, looks like you're in a better spot, just plain and simple.
That's right.
For sure, for
sure.
sure.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Anything else that we want to cover today?
The last thing is, I know someone mentioned to us about they notice how a lot of bodybuilders are shaking on stage and why that is. So if you could answer that.
Right. Well, you know what? I think that's, there's various reasons. Some of them are physiological, okay, you know, because they may have an electrolyte imbalance,
okay.
You know, or be sweating excessively, that type of thing, or just nerves. I mean, let's face it, you know, a lot of times you know, when they're first going up there for the first time, you know, they're a bit nervous, okay? And I can certainly understand that. But the one that is definitely within their control, it's within your control, is if you practice enough and you practice holding and tensing the muscles enough, okay, then your muscles shouldn't be shaking on the day of the show, okay? You see,
yeah.
a lot of times it comes because they're just not used to standing there in a quote-unquote relaxed, but actually just a relaxed, tensed, you know, way, okay, for a long amount of time, you know, and so that's where the shaking starts.
Okay.
You know, because they just can't, you know, and you see it in the men and the women both.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like they're just not used to holding all those muscles in their body tightened up for prolonged periods of time. You got to practice that, guys.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I have any more.
Pearls of wisdom that you're going to share today. But maybe there will be a sequel.
Oh yeah, I would love it. Yeah.
Man, I can't tell you what a thrill, you know, to be able to work with you.
This is an honor.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is great to old school and new school, you know. But hey, listen, at the end of the day, you know, the objective with posing is to show your body in its best light, whether it was yesteryear or whether it's today. You know, the whole idea is to get up there and do a great presentation and show your body to its best angles and best light. You know, one of the things that I hope that those that watch the video will take away is the importance of presentation, and that they'll take it seriously, and that they'll take the torch and run with it and try to do the very best they can with their presentation to elevate the art of posing to another level.
Yes, I totally agree.
Terrence, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.